Welcome to the Imposter Syndrome Club. I'm Alice Edie and I'm joined by my amazing, gorgeous, beautiful, all the adjectives, co-host and friend Jessamy G. And we're sitting here today and we're about to interview Izzy Watts. Izzy, I'm not even going to start trying to describe all the things you do. We're going to kick off by the way we usually do, which is asking you to please read us your own bio.
Yes, okay, thanks for having me. Lovely to see you both. Lovely to meet you, Jess, for the first time as well.
It's a pleasure.
You hear you all the time, like on the podcast. I know so much about you. It's kind of creepy.
Oh, that's so... And then your first experience of me was making you say happy birthday to my dog.
I'm just mad you didn't tell me so I couldn't bring a puppuccino round.
My apologies, but it is so lovely to meet you.
Okay, yes. Well, every part of me wants to give all these like preamble-y stuff, but I can't. Just got to read it out.
Yeah, just do it.
Rip it off.
Okay. Izzy Watts is a senior producer in the advertising industry and has managed the production of TV commercials for some of the biggest brands in Australia, including The Athlete's Foot, Priceline, Voost and Bank Australia. But Izzy's passions reach far beyond storytelling for brands. She's an intersectional feminist that's driven by the lived experience of women in today's world, which is why she founded the online community I'm With Her, a safe space to share uncomfortable truths. I sniffed into the mic.
It's okay. Keep going. You're doing great.
The group of over 1,300 members tackle issues affecting women all over the globe, including sexual violence and women's healthcare. These difficult topics harness the power of individual stories to bring them to life through written words or on the I'm With Her podcast. Izzy takes on new experiences all the time, diving in headfirst with utterly infectious enthusiasm. She's an activist, campaigner, facilitator for equine therapy, an intersectional feminist British expat adventuring her way through life in Australia. Do not be fooled by her bubbly persona. Izzy is fierce, passionate, and messily trying to change the world one story at a time.
Yes.
Oh, I love that girl.
Yes.
Oh my God, reading out loud. I haven't done that since school.
Right?
Like, and my voice was shaky. I was like, this is hard.
It's such a amazing dick first move on our parts to just ask people to read their own bio. It's so stressful. Thank you for doing that.
It's genius. It's genius. It was actually a really, really interesting process. So I kind of enjoyed doing it. So thanks. Because I wrote this for this conversation basically because I haven't had to have a bio for so long. I thought I'd just write something and it was kind of good to just like humble oneself.
Yeah.
Think about like what version of myself do I want to talk about?
Yeah, and how did you find that going through, because you do so many different things, and like that's the thing I think I've known you for about a year now, and just like how many different worlds you play in, and there is this kind of through line, like you mentioned the kind of intersectional feminism, and I think other people have always been you're someone who is so kind of community driven. But yeah, how did you think about what you put first when you talk about what you do?
I noticed that I wrote intersectional twice, which is like so me not to completely edit something before I do it. That's a very me move. I was, send an email and then realize everything's wrong or not attach something or whatever, which is great. But how did I decide? I guess I just thought the things that I feel connected to at this point in my life. And I think I sound quite confident in that, but that's probably because when I wrote it, I'm like in the good stage of my cycle and I'm feeling like creative and comfortable and happy.
First week.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, I'm going to kick ass in the world. I'm confident. This is fine. Imposter syndrome, what? So yeah, I thought, I don't know. I think there's a concern when you do lots of different things that you don't feel like a professional in any of them or that you succeed in any of them. But I guess trying to not follow a particular path in my career in any particular way and make decisions based on me in the moment at those times about what I want to do and what fulfills me. And those things are forever changing. And the goals that I want to achieve move. And yeah, so I think that I like to follow that path, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a million things went through my head and then I was like, no, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. But yeah.
I have 1,000,001 questions, and this is kind of a a unique opportunity for me in our podcasting experience so far is that we don't know each other, and so all of this is news to me, which is awesome, because now I'm just like bursting with questions.
I told you she was amazing.
Yeah. And I don't know where to start, because I've got some things that are around sort of, like your kind of experience of your process moving through different things. And then I've got lots of questions about individual things. But I think where I might start is, for the benefit of us and for our audiences, could you explain what intersectional feminism means?
It's such a good question, right? I've had to do this quite a few times, and I think that every time I learn something from it, and it always depends on who I'm talking to, because it depends on where that person identifies themselves in what level of feminism and how that, all the rest of it. So the last person I explained this to was my dad, who's in his 70s now, and he's friends with, second wave feminists, and he was so worried that intersectional feminism was like a negative thing towards the second wave of feminism, which we understand to be quite white-centered. So the idea is that the people that benefited from that wave of feminism are white women only, or at least privileged people.
So just to check, because I'm just going to be embarrassingly basic on this. So would like second wave feminism, when you say it like privileges kind of white women, would that be like the suffragette vibe of like votes for women, while at the same time people of color were looking after their children at home kind of thing?
Exactly right.
Okay, got it.
So they're the criticisms of the second wave of feminism.
Okay.
And so intersectional feminism is this idea of, like any kind of movement, we're moving forward and developing as we learn more. And it's this idea that we need to understand that different parts of you and different parts of life have they intersect and will affect one another. So let's say you're part of a marginalised group and a woman. Those two things are going to come together to make your... I'm not explaining this well.
No.
Let me start. Might want to edit that bit. But okay, so the idea of intersectional feminism is that every element of you and the person that you are will come together, and those elements will intersect in the way that you are able to show up in the world. So you might be a woman, but you might also be a woman who's living with a disability, or you might be part of a community that is a marginalised group within the society that you live in.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that making certain changes and fighting for certain things can't just benefit just the privileged few of us, but we need to encourage everybody within all of those elements to make sure that the changes that we're making, the things that we're fighting for, can affect everybody, not just a handful.
So that you can't, I'm saying it to make sure that I'm kind of understanding or wrapping my head around it, that like a view of feminism can't only be looking at that one part of your life, because it's going to always be, like you say, like intersecting and affected by other variables which will change and affect your experience as a woman in the world, or as a female identifying person in the world. Like those things it's the woven into each other.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think previously, other marginalised groups have been used by white feminists for white feminists to come out on top. So, for example, if we're talking about the contraceptive pill, that was actually experimented on Puerto Rican women before it was sort of made a pharmaceutical drug and available to people. And a lot of those women were unable to conceive afterwards because they were literally used as lab rats. And there was no justice ever served there, but the pill became available for women to use, but most women who were able to use it were married, white, privileged women. So that's just an example of, the movement sort of messily not really bringing everybody into the fold. But I think women who are feeling, this is a huge thing that's going to change a lot of women's lives. They want to accept it, but we need to accept things, but thinking about everybody else as well and bring everyone along for the ride.
So, Jess?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, so how are we doing? What's the good news? But really, genuinely though, like obviously you're through I'm With Her, which I've also got a million questions about. You're I imagine hearing these stories a lot by people you talk to on the podcast and the writing that comes in through the community. How much progress have we made? Are we making? What's the prognosis from your point of view?
I don't know if I'm the right person to answer because I guess I am a white privileged feminist.
Of course, but just from your observation, I guess.
I think that is my observation. I think that I've learned that my individual experience doesn't really tell me how we are doing more generally in society, but and how not to center myself in all of the understanding of progress that we're making. But I think it's an impossible thing to define. I don't think we're doing well at all. Like, the pandemic put a lot of pressure on a lot of things that we've done moving forward. Domestic violence has been worse than ever. The pay gap has just increased, So generally speaking, there's a long way to go. Yeah, I think. And I wouldn't know how to summarize it.
How does this link then with the I'm With Her podcast, and what is your I don't know if the right word is like mission or kind of like when you set out to start the podcast and the interviews, like what kinds of conversations are you having? And
so I was brought up in a family where like statistics and science and all these great things are like really important, and we base anecdotal stories are actually kind of put on the lower rung of importance in regards to making up our mind about stuff. And I agree with all of that stuff when it comes to vaccinations and things. But I read Invisible Women, which changed my life, which is a book by an amazing author whose name I can't remember right now. But
what's it called? Invisible Women?
Invisible Women.
Okay.
And she basically looks at how society has been created and how women have been left out of everything. So women were not included in medical research in this country until 1984 or something, I think it was. So we have been taking medicines and things like that haven't even been used on women at all. And so when you start learning these things, you start asking questions in regards to your own experience. And then I had my own bad experience on hormonal contraceptive, which put me into a very seriously like a really bad mental health state for years. I was 28 years old, never experienced any kind of mental health issues before. And I got so bad that, like, I wouldn't say I was suicidal, but I was, saying to my mum, like, if this is what it's like, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't know how to do it like this forever.
Well, and that was linked to, when you say hormonal contraceptive, the pill.
I had the implant, which is progesterone only. Whereas the pill, there is a progesterone only pill, but I'd previously been on an estrogen and progesterone pill and I had been fine. Didn't ask any questions, got this put in, and I didn't have any other health issues, but yet it took, I think it was about 3 years before a doctor even considered, like, let's just take it out and see what happens.
Wow.
And then within 24 hours of it being out of my body, I remember saying to my partner, like, I'm me again, like within 24 hours. So my life changed like that, which is why I set up the group I'm With Her, because the idea behind it was we need to talk about this stuff. And if not from like a medical, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a therapist or anything, but I'm someone who can listen and empathize and more importantly, listen and believe people when they tell you that you're going through certain things. And it just opened a can of worms. My goodness. Like, I didn't realize sharing my story was going to just have this knock-on effect of just, like, people desperate to share theirs. And that's why I say, like, it's a safe space to talk about uncomfortable truths, because these things are difficult to talk about and they're messy, and often you behave in a certain way that you regret or feel so much shame around, and it's difficult to find those people to talk to.
And they're also invisible things. You're not talking about a broken arm or a leg. You're speaking about like an internal experience, and it can be really difficult to share that in a way that feels like it's conveying what that reality is to someone else.
Absolutely. And you don't even know at the time either. Yeah. I mean, a lot of these things can be talked about in hindsight, but I think we moved sort of from health into, we talk a lot about sexual violence as well. So I've been incredibly privileged to be, the first person that people have told when they've realised something's happened to them that they want to talk about. And it's been incredibly eye-opening experience. I can't remember what your original question was. Like, how did we get here?
Oh, I think we would just no idea. I don't fucking know.
Where did I start?
It couldn't matter less. Like, all of this podcast is a series of tangents.
Yeah.
So if we lose the original point, please don't feel like you have to find it. It'll naturally come back up again if it is meant to be in the world. So, so please don't worry. That sounds incredible, and thank you for doing that work. That's really amazing. It's put my mind back as well, talking about having issues with hormonal contraceptives, like just the amount of women that I've spoken to over my life. So I was on the pill from when I was 13 because I had really, really bad period pain, and like to the point where I would like vomit and pass out and stuff when I was a kid. So that's why I ended up on contraception so early, right through until like only a few years ago. And I was like, I wonder what my body does without this. And that was really interesting.
How did you go?
I had a lot more feelings than I was expecting. I think so. I actually had a pretty positive experience, especially when I was super young, because I was a bit of a what's the word? Intense child.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I've felt a lot of feelings, and I actually think that the pill kind of evened me out a little bit, which was really good at that time. And then I never knew any different, and I was just sort of, wondering, like, I wonder what it's like out here. And I definitely noticed like higher highs and lower lows for sure. And I, as much as like, okay, it's a pain in the ass getting your period every month. I'm like, every month?
Who has the time?
Who has the time?
I'm like, how has this been 27 days? Right. No way. I've only been happy for 2 of them. For God's sake, give me a chance.
But then, like you said in your, when you were talking about reading your bio and like writing it when you were in a stage in your cycle and you're feeling really like good and positive, to experience those natural cycles again. And we've spoken about this, like you're like, why every month are you like, I am the fattest, ugliest bitch in the whole entire world? And then the next day you get your period, you're like, why do I forget? But so even though the lows are not great, experiencing that sort of natural cycle, I've actually really, really, really enjoyed, and it feels good. It feels like there's something like right about it. Like
I miss that in a way so much. Like that was, I remember, because I'm on the pill now for the first time in like 10 years, and I'm literally missing, because I used to track it, and I'd know for creative projects, I'd schedule those meetings for the first kind of 7 days of the month, and I'd get those 2 golden ovulation days where I'd be like, I am a fucking golden god. Everything I touch is magical. This is the best.
Just walking down the street like.
I was like, is this what white dudes feel like all the time? Like, are you kidding me? So good. And then immediately after that, it would just be like, I'm the fucking worst. I am so unlovable, whatever. And I would be like, that would be the time I'd schedule for rolling projects out. And I just had a contract with myself that I was like, first part of the month me gets to make the creative decisions, and then second part of the month just has to execute, and it's like not my job to question what that other Alice decided, because I was like, well, in that phase I was just like, I don't know what is up or down at all, and I miss that now.
Yeah, and I love that you do that. Like the way that you organize your life, I would encourage all women to do it if they can, because I think it's I think for your own self-confidence as well, you're really just like making the most. And I just think if the world was run and made by women for women, we would be doing this anyway. Yeah. Like it would just be a normal thing.
So are you quite like cycle aware, and do you kind of like, can you unpack that a bit more? Just how would you invite people to start thinking about that?
Yeah. But I just want to say one more thing based on what you were just talking about then, and how when you started taking the pill again, you knew that it was going to sort of like dampen your, or like level you out in that way. And like, but I think what's important about that, it was a conscious decision that you knew what you were trading off.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you knew that whatever this reason that you were going on was for like was worth it or whatever, and you're aware of it. And I think that it's that informed consent, which is something we talk about a lot in the group, which I just think is so important, because when you are 16 and you're going through pain, you get thrown onto the pill and you think everything's fine, or for acne or whatever, and then years and years later, you know, you've been putting something in your body that you don't know why or what it is, and we've just accepted that for so long, and I think we don't accept the side effects very often, or it can take a long time to find the right doctor who will listen to you or empower you to make whatever decisions you want to make. So I just think it's just really important. So it's nice to hear somebody say that that's what they do, and like they're making these decisions, and that's just exciting, because I think that we're already moving forward. Like, this is what we campaign for in the group all the time, so it's good.
Yeah, that's so clever. You're so clever.
Well, I miss
thought
it now.
to do that. I'm going to do it now. Sorry, I'll step into the
do it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's such an excellent idea. Like, why not leverage our natural cycles as our superpowers, rather than just be like, why am I so awful?
Well, just have to pretend to show up in the world like a man who's not going through any of these things. Like, why do we feel like we have to do that? Like, the day I'm going to celebrate is when I email a client or my boss or something and say, sorry, that's my period week, I'm not doing it. Like, get on with it. Like, why is that not an okay thing to say? Like,
I think that some businesses are really, like, I know Eve, the yoga, so they run that in such a cycle aware way, where I think they've got like a day a month that you're allowed, the yoga teachers can trade that day with other teachers if it's like a cycle day, basically, and they'll all step in for each other and cover those days. Like, it's baked into the structure of the business, instead of being like a male cycle, which typically works on a more 24-hour loop, and then it resets, and then it does another 24 hours. It's like you're just designing the structure to be a 28-day kind of, more of a kind of, I don't know, what would you, like what is that shape? I'm making a shape with my hands. A wave.
It's called a cycle. So No, I know what you mean though. I think when I was writing my bio as well, I was thinking, you know, how you're saying out loud that you're a feminist and that you try lots of different things, and you're sort of being quite, like, I was being quite honest about who I am. And I think it's because I've got to this point in my life now, or in my career at least, where I don't just want to work for anybody for the sake of any. I'm privileged enough right now that I don't have to take on certain work, and I really want to actively not take on work that I think doesn't align with my values. And if someone was to read that bio and say, oh, feminist, then I really don't want to fucking work with you anyway. Yeah. Like, I'm not interested at all. I don't want to invite people like that into. I want to work with people who have similar values and care about the same stuff as me and want to make stuff happen. Like, I don't really care about the big brands or anything like that. And that's not to take anything away from anybody who does value those things. But for me, it's not what is like filling my soul and filling up my cup and making me happy. And so writing a bio in that way, I think would filter out the people.
Absolutely. I've had those thoughts as well about various things, about, you know, the type of language that I use, or whether I want to like post about this podcast on LinkedIn, for example, to a professional audience. And you do have that moment of like, oh, but what if they don't like it? Or what if they go, feminist, or this, whatever the thing is. But then then you're like, but great, because then I don't have to fucking deal with them. Yeah. What a pleasure.
And I mean, I don't know if it's going to work. Like, most people will be like, can you just pick something and be good at it, for God's sake? Like, just pick something, you have to at some point. But it's where I'm at right now. I'm like, I don't care. That's how I'm going to approach stuff.
Well, and also, I mean, the kind of work that Jessamy and I do, which is we go into different organizations and kind of take visual notes for them, basically, as like a very high level summary of our job, which means we get to see inside so many diverse organizations, and we get to be this fly on the wall and eavesdrop on the kinds of conversations that happen at every level across organizations. And the one thing that I feel like is more and more consistently, and we've both been doing this for more than a decade now, and I don't know, Jess, if you'd agree, but like more and more just the conversations around, like, it is no longer about finding a person who does one thing. It's about finding a person who's got like critical thinking, creativity is flexible. So weirdly, I don't think that is a bad thing. Like I think that, you know, it's you, so fuck that is you.
Yeah.
But also conveniently and happily, I think it is really like what is right for this moment. Like I think that's how we need to be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's one way. I mean, as you know from all the people you've been talking to and your own experiences, there's no one way to reach anywhere or get to anywhere or anything like that. And I think that's very like, you know, a boomer generation who, you know, you went to university and then you got a job and you stayed in that job and you bought a house. But now I'm like, I can't buy a house anyway. So fuck all of it.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do any of it? Like,
You realise that's going to be the quotes for this. That's going to be a pull-out quote. But yeah, in all seriousness though, exactly.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, I guess the other thing as well, this is a bit of a random segue, but why not? Is I've been thinking about sort of imposter syndrome and like where this fits in my life. And I think I'm 33 now, and once again, as a woman, I feel like I've reached a certain age at which point I have to have made certain decisions about my life. And like right now, that's about having children and things. And I think this like imposter of like what version of woman you want to be, like is just constantly there. Like I started thinking about the fact that I needed to have kids in my like late 20s, and for the last 4 or 5 years it's dominated so many conversations that I've had with friends and maybe affected certain decisions that I've made. And I've kind of just tried to decide like right now, what do I want? And also if I am lucky enough to make a choice, like is to have that choice. I don't even know if I could carry a child, but if I was lucky enough to have that choice, I realize like if I was to do it, I think there would be days that I wish I hadn't. And if I wasn't going to do it, there'd be days I wish I had. And I think that I'm getting this idea about life and like all these sort of moments of decisions and choices that you make, that you're always going to be okay, whatever, like, you know, you're not going to end up in one destiny or whatever that was supposed to happen. Like, whatever your path is at that time, like, you will make it work, you know?
Izzy, you're speaking straight to my soul about all this stuff. The number of conversations I've had with myself and other people exactly along those lines, because, you know, I'm 37 now, so I'm getting towards the very end of those decisions being made. And I don't think I want children. I always thought that I would, because that's what I'd seen modelled for me in my family. So you're just like, well, that's what happens when you grow up. You get married, you have babies, you picture your future life being similar to the life that you've had just because of your exposure, right? I imagine that's pretty common. Then just like waiting for that thing to kick in and waiting. I'm like, I feel nothing. Like less than nothing. Like kids seem like a bit of a pain in the ass, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, some of them are delightful. Shout out Josh, my nephew, you're the best. But I still like, you know, maintain the right to leave the door ajar is how I describe it, because it's like, you know, you never know, right? You never know what might change in your ever-changing body. But what I could know for sure is that I will be absolutely fine if I don't.
Yes.
Which took me quite a while just to even get there. Like I'm still not 100% sure one way or the other, but I know definitely like I will not be missing anything. I will not feel like a piece of me is incomplete, or, you know, that I didn't fulfill my duties as a woman, or that I'm, you know, missing out on something. Because people say dumb shit like, oh, but you don't know what you're missing out on. I'm like, well, exactly. Yeah, perfect. I will never know exactly, so it doesn't matter.
Exactly the same argument though for heroin. I'm just saying.
I mean, yes.
You don't. I mean, like I assume I've heard pretty good. But also, like, I'm making that choice.
But I'm making the choice lots of sleepless nights and headaches and all the other shit.
But I'm just saying, it's like
dirty nappies.
It's easy for me to walk. It's easy for me to walk away from because I don't know how good it is.
Yeah. Right. I gotta say, like, random tangent, but like addiction to me, I think is the scariest thing that could happen to me ever in my life. Like, it frightens me beyond belief.
Is it a thing that you think about? And actually, maybe this segue makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but like your work with equine therapy, I know a little bit about that, and I know that it's often used for people with addiction. I don't know if that's, could you link us through to there? Could you just make that segue work?
Yes, so the other life of Izzy Watts, I recently did a course, and so we call it equine facilitated learning because I'm not a therapist, so I can't call it therapy, which is it's a pretty new therapy that's sort of unregulated, which is both parts terrifying and also wonderful because I don't have to go back to university and be a therapist in order to be able to facilitate this. So I suppose the difference is that I would say that the horse is the therapist and I'm merely a facilitator there to ensure people have a safe experience together.
Okay.
There is recent research, like clinical research, that sort of suggests that spending time with animals can be really, really positive for experiential learning, and along with that comes sort of your feeling about yourself, relationship with yourself, your self-worth and confidence and that sort of thing. And the reason that is that horses are flight animals who don't care what you look like or how you are or anything like that. They base their behaviour on you intuitively through energy. And so to get a horse to do something, you have to build some kind of relationship with them. And so they're really, really positive for people's self-confidence when they're learning how to communicate with an animal where they can't use words. And it's really powerful, and it can often be used with people who have experienced some sort of trauma or people who are suffering with addiction, but mostly, or anybody, like anyone living in the city and just needs some time to be out and be with animals and that sort of thing. And I think it's magic. Like I've always said my entire life, I'm lucky enough to have been around horses since I was a kid, and I always said, like, you know, the best view is the view between the horse's ears and all that. All that
Is that a horse person saying?
It's like such a horse person joke. Lol, horse people. Love them and hate them. Yeah, so, but I always said, like, whenever I'm spending time with the horses, it feels like therapy, like, duh. And, you know, it actually is. Like, it is magic. Have either of you had any experiences with horses or been able to do this before?
No, and I'd call my experience with horses limited and quite frightening.
Yes.
Let's unpack.
It's a very, I don't know if it's what your school camps in South Africa or the UK were like, but it's like a very classic Australian thing that you go out to like a camp for your school camp and you would like have a day where you go on a horse ride. So you're like a camp in a country sort of thing. So I can remember two such camps. One of them, my horse didn't want to do anything. And the other one, the horse was like, I'm leading this pack. And just like ran out in front while I was like, but I don't know. I feel like horses are, what is it? It's like reverent or something around them. Like they're so big and they feel like powerful and I don't know. They've got some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like a nobility?
Yeah, exactly. That kind of a thing.
If a horse likes you, you're like, oh my God, that horse likes me.
Right. I mean, I get that with all animals, just like, am I amazing?
Also people.
Dan and I were house sitting for a little bit up on the Bellarine Peninsula, which was so fun because it was like looking after the house, but also like two big dogs. This is before we had our little doggies, and like a goat and a horse and chickens, and just to like have a little mini break, but with jobs to do, like lots of little, like, which was just like feeding animals and walking the dogs and stuff was just really, really fun because you felt useful. But we were both, and we would have had similar sort of experiences with like horses at school camps, whatever, and that was kind of it. So not like super positive experiences, but not like terrified of them or anything. And we were both really taken aback by how frightened we were of the horse, of feeding the horse and stuff, because when you're actually there up close and feel like it's so big, and powerful
Their
and noble.
skulls are
and-
huge, just like their teeth are massive.
Yeah. I think that's the best thing about it is that you can't force these animals to do anything. Like you might be able to do once, but you'll never be able to do it again. Like they are stronger than you, they are bigger than you, and they're incredibly smart, and they look into your soul. And so I think the beauty of like the facilitated learning is learning how to read their body language and respect it, most importantly, and then work out how you can use yours and your voice and everything else to sort of have a common goal and like, make a course and ask them to go over a pole or ask them to lie down or something like that. And the power that you feel once you get to that point is like a drug. Like the feeling of it is just so powerful, and that's all you.
So what? Just so yeah. It's so fascinating. So what would a typical session look like, and who? So anyone can come.
Yes, anyone could come. And I'd encourage both of you come along. We'll do a session. That'd be great.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would absolutely love to.
And I think anyone that's been around horses in sort of the old traditional way, we often say, don't walk behind the horse, don't feed the horse, they'll bite you, they'll kick you, all the rest of it. They actually don't. They really don't do any of those things unless they're threatened. So I would never sort of start a session with anybody to tell them all the things not to do and to be aware of, but just to sort of have like a positive first interaction with the horse. But I know the horse well, so well that, I'll match them up with people based on like, in fact, actually they say that if certain horses have been through certain trauma and a person has been through a certain trauma, they can often make a really good match. So they heal each other through the whole process, which is just fucking magical.
Yeah. So someone will come to you, you'll speak to them for a bit, get a sense of what they are looking for, what change they're seeking. I guess there's a reason they've showed up.
So there's no goal setting. So I guess that's like complete different to like a lot of other things that you'd approach. There's no goal setting. There's no way to fail this. Because the experience will be completely different to what people will expect it to be. And if you set a goal, then you're setting them up to fail. And that might not be what they need. They might tell you that they have certain experience with the horses. They might tell you that they've experienced a certain trauma, but what you might actually be working on is something completely unrelated that they're not even aware of. So you want to keep it as open as possible, basically. But I'd actually ask the person, like, here are the 4 horses that I'm working with. And we say work with, not use, which is also really important. Is there one that you feel like connected to? And like if it's a kid, with ginger hair, they might want the chestnut because they got matching hair and it's like adorable, and that's a good enough reason. It doesn't have to be.
That's why I chose my dog.
Yeah. Matchy hair?
Famously.
Okay. I'm so glad I used that example.
You did use it for a child. I'm right with that. Makes me feel youthful.
Yes. So they would then pick whichever one they feel connected to the most. I might tell them a little bit about each horse or whatever. And then the session, again, I can't have any plan, but I need to just understand the horse to be able to improvise as needed throughout the session, depending on the mood. There have been some clients that I've worked with who might be living with a disability, so I might get a heads up from their carer earlier that day saying that they're having a bad day. So, okay, cool, we can make some decisions based around that as when they arrive. But generally, I will decide that, or the horse will decide that based, a lot of people want to pre-warn you or set up certain things, or, they try and help. But in fact, actually, as long as the horse and the person are there and they're hanging out and having a good time, it's really none of our business what else goes on with them.
And are they riding the horse, or are they just interacting in different ways?
So you can have mounted EFL. I don't do that at the moment. It's all groundwork.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that can be, So, I mean, if let's say I've got someone who is living with ADHD and they're like super hyper that day and they're having like a big day. So we'll put all the brushes around the arena and I'll be like, go and get the red brush. And they'll run and go and get the red brush and they'll run back. And if they bring back the red brush, we know, cool, okay, maybe let's start doing something that it is more focused, like brush 3 times, and if they go 1, 2, 3 and run off again, then no, okay, let's do more running, go and get the blue brush, and like, or if they start taking time, okay, well then maybe it's time to move on to the next thing. So it's all about just watching people in their moment and sort of working out in the time what they need and what they want to do, and they can have ideas as well.
Wow. You must learn so much from what you observe in people, like so much about how to tune in to what people need.
Yeah, I think so. I think ultimately my goal, talking about not having goals, but like personally, I think I want to make sure that person has left the session feeling better than when they arrived, whatever that means. And if it's a kid who has ADHD, for example, to use that example again, they've probably spent the whole day at school being told, sit down, don't do that, be quiet. And if just for the hour they don't get told what they can't do or to try and regulate something that they actually cannot regulate, then hopefully they've had a really good time. And like whoever they are has just been encouraged rather than, criticised, I guess.
Amazing. It sounds amazing. And so at the moment, and you were saying it's unregulated, so I imagine that there's some magic that's happening. We don't exactly know why. There's probably some theories as to why, but we don't 100%, have that like peer-reviewed evidence.
We don't know what the mechanism is.
Right. So then how do these programs end up like getting funded? How do people find themselves there? So I imagine if you're in a drug and alcohol rehab program or you're on the NDIS or whatever that might be, is there funding available for people to go and test it out even though it's not, 100%?
Yes, there is NDIS funding for it already,
amazing.
Which is really cool. That's
so great.
Yeah, and especially for mounted as well for like hip stuff or whatever. Yes, so there is funding, which is really cool. It's still quite new. My goal was to try and I'd love for people seeking asylum or refugees or my passion is like, women who have experienced or survived some sort of sexual violence. I would love to be able to fund those groups. My plan was to like charge people the normal rate and then use that money to then fund like discounted just through the business.
Yeah.
However that model would work. I don't know, but I just think it could work.
And that links to, can you chat to us a bit about, you've done a fair amount of work, and I'm not sure which organisation specifically, but with asylum seekers?
Yes. So I worked for the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre, which is the biggest humanitarian organisation in Australia, which is cool. And I was their content producer, so I was filming and editing and basically making content by trying to amplify the stories of people seeking asylum, basically, is sort of how he described it. It was a great experience. I mean, I felt highly privileged to be there. And when we're talking about sort of imposters and stuff, there was a lot of internal discussions in the organisations and with myself in regards to why should I be doing this role? Like how do I represent somebody seeking asylum, especially if I'm working for the marketing team, which is creating work to tell certain stories to sort of harness people's saviourism issues to give money in order to fix a problem. And like, are you really fixing the problem or are you actually making it worse over time? And should somebody who is seeking asylum be doing the role that I'm doing? Well, ultimately, yes, I think was the conclusion that I always came to. And so I just ended my 6-month contract because I felt like if I want to support this, I need to find another way to do it instead of taking up a role that somebody else that should be having it. Yeah. So yeah, where do I start? It was an incredible experience.
Do you, so that was almost, that's you harnessing, would that be, and I use inverted commas here, that was you harnessing your kind of day job in terms of your kind of skills within like a media comms filming kind of role?
Yes.
which has been happening like we've spoken about so much stuff, like not even touched on that you've got a day job too that's like happening. It's like paying rent is on the background. But I really love and respect that you did find a way to contribute and to, again, kind of, yeah, like you say, it's not without massive complications, and it's an incredibly complex space. And I think it's really admirable the level of criticality that you took to that role, that because I think getting high on saviourism is it's like must be very seductive, right? Like humans, we all want to do good, and it feels good to be good. So it would be really easy to kind of stop at that point. But like to almost, to have gone, you've done more than most. You've shown up and you've given back in this role and like contributed, but then also to do so and not just be patting yourself on the back about it. Be like, okay, but wait a second, like who should be telling these stories, and is it me, and where? Yeah, I think thinking about that is really important and difficult.
But it was the people within the organisation who taught me to ask those questions, which is amazing. Like I came from the advertising industry where I would be talked over by people in the boardroom, and I'd have to fight for space, and like it was just frustrating the shit out of me. And I just thought, why do I have to put up with this? Like I don't need it for visa reasons anymore. And so so I went into the 6-month contract, and I learned so much in that time, because anyone invited to a meeting was asked, like, they were just held in such high esteem, and like, you have experience here, tell us, what do you think? Or like, what's your experience? Is that right? And that was a natural way of communicating within a meeting to these people, and asking people how they are, and like valuing people's personal life outside of work, and taking sick leave, and all of those things were just normalized. And I think that's why, talked earlier about writing that bio and saying like who I want to work with and who I don't want to work with. Like these people are the people that I want to work with. Like we have the same values and the way that we approach life. And that taught me so much. So I took so much away from that experience. Like endless amounts, actually. It's really nice to think back on, really. And I hope, I'm sure I'll remain in touch with all of them and find other ways to work or volunteer or whatever with the organisation, because they do amazing work.
It is incredible, that cultural thing, which seems very rare and regardless if you're working with marginalised groups or not, that foster a culture of actually valuing everybody in that place, that everybody has a life, an opinion, ideas that could be valuable, and that relationship building is so incredibly important. And it does, and like, not to be gross about it, but it does usually like increase your bottom line too, right? So if you're looking at it just from an economic perspective, you are going to also win in that way.
Yeah.
And it's something that I've seen in a couple of workplaces. Well, yeah, one workplace that I've actually
the one
worked
that you
in.
set up. My own workplace.
A couple.
My own business.
My boss is so hot and awesome.
Our dog's in the office.
And just recently, actually, I've been doing some work with the state government department with a really special group of people a lot of the work that they do is community engagement work. And so they basically, this sort of smaller task group, have this ongoing project of like, how do we work better together? Like, how do we learn? What's the what's the word? My brain's not working. I'm just going to use the word things because I can't think of...
things is good.
What are the things that we need to have? Like, what does the environment need to be like? What sort of setup do we need to have? How long breaks do we need to have? Like, how do we actually learn, as in like absorb new information, learn about each other, get better at our jobs, all of those sorts of things. And it's incredible, like, when you see how much work gets done with that group of people as opposed to any other, regular kind of corporate-y vibe that's very narrow in terms of its view of the individual. It's just they get so much more done and their lives are so much better
See,
because
that
they get to
last
hang out
point-
with their friends.
Yeah, that last point is important to me because I always feel like these ways of working just get adopted by like the capitalist machine, and it's like we're working more than ever because we're happier, and like we find all these ways to like intrude into people's lives. But if people are actually happier, then that's cool. Like that's the
And I
market.
guess the difference with that, when I say they get so much done, they're not selling widgets or like, you know, looking to increase their revenue. Like the work that they're doing is working out how to do the work, if you know what I mean. So that there is
How
no
meta.
set, there is no set outcome. The work that they're doing is working out how to make their lives happier and build better relationships and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I just think giving people a moment in a meeting to add value because you believe that they have value and they know that, just it was the magical thing that I saw here. People felt more confident to work autonomously because they were told, you are the professional in this field. This is what you do and we've hired you because that's what you do. And anyone who thinks that people work in non-for-profits are like failed professionals just have no idea. These people are like so incredible at what they do.
Yeah.
And they do burn out because, you know, the cause is not you. And at the end of the day, your comfortability is the least important thing in regards to sort of working with refugees, for example. But, being given that, like, told that you're good at what you do and we just take that. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to tell us what time you work till, whatever. We just know. We hired you because we know that you're great. For me, it was just like, oh, shit. Okay, I'll do this stuff then. That's cool. Like, I don't have to worry about it because I think too much.
It's just always crazy to me how you get the kind of contrast between that way. It's almost impossible to speak about because it sounds so obvious. It's like treat humans like humans. Like that's essentially it. Like that doesn't sound groundbreaking. But at the same time you go into the city and I'm just amazed at like when I've done super like uber corporate jobs and it's like big shiny glass buildings 1 million stories high and everyone's wearing suits and it's the whole thing and I'm like, how is this an institution built of humans and something happens, like some weird spell gets cast and everyone acts like that's not the case anymore. Like everyone acts like they're not humans, and that's weird to me that we've conflated this idea of professionalism with like a dehumanism. I'm like, those are not mutually exclusive concepts. Like, I'm fucking good at what I do. I'm also a very messy human with 1 million other faults. But I'm like, but I'm good at my job and I take it seriously. Like, I can be all of those things at once, as can everyone.
Yeah.
And it's so strange that that's
absolutely
like somehow
have
forgotten.
you ever been able to call that out? Have you ever been able to stand your ground? Have you ever been able to be more human in these non-human setups?
I mean, I would say yes, but I also feel like I'm cheating answering that because our role is as kind of often the token creative in the room.
Oh, yeah.
There's quite a lot of space.
The production company, just like, I'm hanging out with the creatives.
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm like, oh, it feels like cheating. So I can't honestly say, I don't know if I would have the courage if I was just part of the regular team of, I don't know, doing the day-to-day work. But as it happens, I'm lucky enough to have a job where weirdness is part of what I'm invoicing for. So
Yes, yeah.
It's okay.
Because I remember once I had like really bad period pains, and this was when I was learning all about women's health stuff. And like I was just like angry most of the time, just all these revelations. And I was in a meeting and I had really bad period pains that I thought I was going to pass out. And I emailed my female colleague, who was my manager, but more so because she was a friend, saying, can you come and interrupt the meeting to get me so I can go outside? Instead of just saying to people, I'm really sorry, I'm actually experiencing some really bad pain. I'll be back.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like I could do that. So but then I felt like I completely let myself down by not standing up for all the things that were like, I'm sitting in a meeting and all I can think about was all these things. And I don't know, I just wasn't ready to do that yet. So frustrating.
I think unfortunately, because like being, you know, white cis male is considered neutral and anything other than that is like, if you mention anything to do with your biology that's outside of that, you're like being dramatic.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah.
Like, oh, she just had to say that she had her period.
we get it.
Like, I mean, who cares? It shouldn't matter and it shouldn't be a big deal. And it's pretty fucked that it still
Yeah.
is, you know, like we've all gone to the bathroom with a tampon shoved up our sleeve, probably recently.
Yeah.
You know, like it's this shameful thing. I have noticed that the language has changed in supermarkets, which I'm here for. That used to be like, what was it? It was something gross, like feminine hygiene.
It makes me so angry.
Isn't that fucked? But now it says period care. I'm like, that's better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've just noticed recently it's
Props
changed.
to that supermarket. Okay,
I
that's
think
good.
I think it's like the main ones.
I am.
Yeah.
On my angry days, I write emails to like feminine hygiene products and tell them that it's not dirty and like that they are wrong, and just like
Yes,
I
Izzy.
love leaving reviews and stuff. So
Yeah,
I
and
just
then-
leave them really bad reviews.
And yes, I do have my period.
I went on this whole tangent a while back where I was like, it's really fucked to me that there's no tampon and or pad emoji. And I was just like, literally half the population, a quarter of the time for a 30-year period. This is a fucking relevant emoji. I'm like, the balloon. I have one birthday a year. I have 12 periods a year. Like, it's insane. It makes no fucking sense to me. And I was like, this is bullshit. I got deep into it. There's like a group of people called the Emoji Consortium, and they meet to decide what emojis get, like, make it into the list of emojis, because
whoa.
Let's make this a thing.
You
Hang
can
on,
join
pause.
it. You can join it.
The emoji
Yes.
You know what I'm imagining? I'm imagining like a bunch of
Illuminati.
people in like wizard capes
It's basically that.
meeting in a basement, and like you have to say a secret password and do a chant.
Did you ever see the skulls with Joshua Jackson?
No.
What?
No.
The skulls.
It doesn't matter if you say it in a different tone. I still not seen it.
Say it louder, maybe I'll know.
Anyway, it was like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, vintage Dawson's Creek, the skull Illuminati. Anyway, that's basically the Emoji Consortium. It's like the Emoji Illuminati, and they get to decide, because like it's got something. It's like some tech thing where like you've got to. The thing with emojis are like that they, no matter if you're on like Android or iPhone, they both work. I don't know. That's apparently a thing. I don't know. Anyway, the point is they decide what they're going to include, and you can go into their website and you can find deep in there all the proposals that like refused proposals for emojis that didn't make it.
Why did they refuse?
I don't know. I got in there, and I ended up emailing the person that had put in because someone had already thought of this.
Yeah.
And like she'd done a proposal like a few years back, and it never made it through for some reason. But now they're like, it's pretty interesting. Like I think that it's changing, and like you'll notice like they've gotten like a lot more like queer or like non-binary characters. Like
yes,
they're cool. They're not the bad guys. Like they're definitely thinking, and a lot of the stuff that they're doing now is the emojis that they add have to be symbolic as well. So it has to be stuff that doesn't only have a literal use, but like that you can make mean other things. Like it takes on like its own grammar. Anyway.
This is a cult I could be part of.
Right.
Yeah. I'll wear a pointy hat for that.
All right. Maybe we'll get back into it.
Let's make it a thing though.
Yeah.
I actually want to make that a thing. Can
Are
we
we
sign
starting
a
a
petition?
petition?
It would be yes.
I think we got our answer. Yeah. Fucking absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Done. I'll find out. I got deep into this and then lost momentum at some point. I emailed her. She emailed back, the person who'd proposed it, and she was lovely.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
you really did get
I
deep
was like
into this.
so into it, and then I was like classic me. I was like, well, next. Done.
What if you designed, Alice, like the world's most glorious pad or tampon emoji, and so you could show it to them and they could not turn you down because they were like, this is what has
so
been missing.
beautiful.
From my life.
I wanted to say that, but because I'm not an artist, I didn't want to be like, you're an artist, draw it. Because it must be so annoying. You're like, oh, you're creative. You must be able to do all of the creative things. So
Also,
you said
I
it.
just deferred it to Alice as well.
I'd happily. A tampon's quite an easy thing to draw.
That's true. That's true. I feel like
Is
you
it
could draw a
used
great
or
tampon.
not used?
Both. We
Yeah.
need both.
I'm going to use it in all the... I tried to sell some clothes on Facebook Marketplace, and that's never fun because have you done this before?
No.
Oh, don't, because you get harassed by lots of weird men. So yesterday I got sent a video of this guy. He wasn't wanking, but I thought that's where it was going to go. And he sat in his car and he has this huge wad of cash. and he's just like hitting his wad of cash against the car. What? And then the camera goes across and it's like the steering wheel, and then his like feet move, and like it's all sort of like a little bit suggestive. And so I just wish I had the tampon emoji just to send the tampon emoji to him, because he'd freak out.
Just be like,
just something like, because I just think
Just to take a photo, send him a video.
better. Oh yes.
Have we just invented the antidote to dick pics?
Okay, that's great, because I did think earlier maybe I'll profit off this and I'll ask him if he wants to buy my used underwear or something. Because if he's into weird shit, maybe this is like, you don't have to have a website. You just sell normal stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and then the weirdos come to you.
I just,
You don't even have to advertise.
I just have clarifying questions. I'm not sure I understand. So you posted a picture of like a dress.
Yes.
And then the response you got was just a video of money.
Yes. Yes.
Cool.
And he was like, and then a message saying, "Let me know if you need anything, Izzy." And I was like, "Yes, I need you to buy my $30 dress." That is what I need you to do.
The ad. You know what I think is amazing about shit like that? Firstly, I mean, I wonder if they have any sort of success rate. I'm guessing not. But what are their expectations, right? Because if you're a guy who does that, I imagine you're doing it all the time.
Yes.
And I can't imagine one girl.
You mean I'm not special? I looked really good at that picture.
I mean, I'm sure you looked particularly amazing, and he probably did. You were the first one that day. You were the inspiration. But like, what are they expecting to happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're sending out a bunch of these videos every week, and not one girl has been like, you know what, I would love to come over there and suck your cock right now. Now that I've seen you a wad of
don't
cash.
give me the money. I just want to suck your dick. Like, we'll just do that. Because I don't think it's about sex. I think it's exerting one's power.
Yeah.
And I
agree.
think it's about being able to behave in whatever way that you want to be able to.
And knowing that there are no consequences.
No consequences, because whatever response I give, I will be the bad person.
Yeah. I feel the same way about like catcalling, which is it makes my blood boil so much. And it still happens all the fucking time. Like, I reckon at least 50% of the time I go out for a run, if it's early in the morning, even during the middle of the day, but particularly if it's early in the morning, there aren't a lot of people around, at least half the time someone will beep, yell out, say something. Mm-hmm. And it makes me so fucking angry, because I'm like, I just want to go for a run in peace. And having lots of conversations with lots of different people about that over time, and you get the occasional dickhead. It's like, oh, like, what is it? Like, they're just like being friendly, or it's a compliment. And it's like, well, no, because I obviously don't like it. And people, they know that they're doing something wrong, because why else are they not doing it in front of a group of people? If they're like, I'm just paying you a compliment, why aren't you comfortable doing it in front of like your grandma, or you know what I mean? You're doing it at a time where there aren't many people around, because you know that's going to make me feel frightened.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine most of these people are actually, you know, violent offenders that want to actually do something, but they do want
but you don't
to feel
know
powerful.
that. You don't know that until
That's
that goes wrong. So the one in a few, if you do respond and then they turn nasty, you don't know who the bad guys are and who the good guys are.
Exactly.
But yes, it's not a compliment. I hate it when people say that. It is not a compliment, because what you're doing is you're looking at a woman's body and you feel like you have some entitled right to be able to comment on it in whatever way that you feel like. And it's just, again, it's an exercise of power, I think.
Yeah.
It's not a compliment. Telling people how they look. Like, I always say to my brother, like, we had these conversations all the time. Why do you think that she cares what you think about her?
Your appraisal.
Like, why do you
her.
feel so entitled that your opinion of what she looks like is what she needs to feel fulfilled by?
Yeah.
Like, get off your fucking high horse, dude. Like, yeah.
Well, now I'm angry,
And the
which
whole
has led
time,
to me being hungry.
can I just say that on the other side of Melbourne, there's some sweet, sweet man with a pile of money who just wants that dress. Why won't she reply?
I showed her all the money.
She's seen it's on red and she didn't even respond for a whole day.
2 blue ticks and nothing. Can I ask, as kind of by way of sort of rounding this up, and maybe it makes sense, but if it's like if something comes to mind, great. If something doesn't, then also great.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of taking a step back, and across these, you've got these like quite wildly different pockets of life or areas of things that you're really passionate about, but they're kind of connected with this idea of facilitation and service, and which in itself is just a very beautiful thing, and it's something I admire deeply about you. How, while you're doing that, do you keep your shit together?
Good question. I love doing all the things that I do. And I love doing new things because you can't be told that you're shit at it because you're new at it. So it's just like, woohoo, this is fun. This is a fun bit of doing new stuff. I guess that makes me think about when the I'm With Her group got really, really vocal when there were accusations of sexual violence within Parliament here in Australia. And it sparked a lot of people to come forward and tell their stories of sexual violence a lot, every day, and sometimes just to me personally. And I'm not trained to deal with any of these things, and I make that very clear. But I wanted just for people to have an outlet if they needed to. And it did make me incredibly, deeply, darkly angry at the world for a very, very long time. And I didn't really look after myself through that. But it was very important for me to go back to these people in the best way possible to support them in the way that you need to. You want to be available all hours of the day if someone is telling you this information. But I've learned, I think that like through the experience, I've learned I'm so cynical about the world and the systems in which we live and how we participate in those systems. I'm now at that point where like I couldn't get lower on how I think about the world. I now need to sort of like compartmentalize things in certain ways and make better decisions on my day-to-day decisions about where my money goes and who I spend my time with and all of those, and where I work and who I accept money from and all of these things. And I think that trying to have a more positive impact on the world as an individual and understanding the power that you can have within that as an active citizen, you know, in the community that you are in, and know that that is doing enough to change something, I think, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm still working it out, I guess. I've just had a 3-month break traveling, so I think you've got me at a really good time. I'm like, I can do anything, I'll take anything on, and then when I'm ovulating next week I'll be like, yes. But yeah, I don't know how you do. I don't know. I think I don't talk to people some days.
Horses, you have horses.
I have horses, yeah, and not drinking that much as well is really good. I'm not very good after a glass of wine.
Yeah,
I'm more articulate after a glass of wine. Actually, I thought a glass of wine before this. I'm better at like just getting my words out after a glass of wine. next time, the next one.
It's the classic like bell-shaped curve that goes for like conversation, pool playing, all the things like a glass or two, and you hit the peak and you're like, yes, I've got this. And then it's just like the tiniest little like sip too much. You're like, nope, falling down the other side, not making any sense, not hitting any of the pool balls. Yeah. Well, Izzy, it's been such an absolute delight to chat to you today and to get to know you a little better. And I hope our friendship continues.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. And thanks so much for having me. It really means a lot. It was really good to chat.
Oh, thank you both.
Thank you, girls. Love you.
Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Imposter Syndrome Club. Please follow us wherever you find your podcasts. And if you're feeling extra kind, rate and review. Or if you got any insights or value from this, share with a friend.
You can also find us on Instagram at imposterpod or online at impostersyndromeclub.com.